Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 20th of January 2025. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, a dramatic last 48, 72 hours in the crypto ecosystem. Obviously, we're all well aware of the fact right now that Trump launched his own meme coin, and then his wife launched her own meme coin, and this happened on Solana. Obviously, it didn't happen on Ethereum or the L2, so there was a lot of kind of drama around that as well. But yeah, it was a pure meme coin. No one really knew if it was real or not for the first few hours, and the token price mooned to like billions of dollars and ended up peaking at like, I don't know, something like 70, 80 billion fully diluted value. Trump and his team allocated 80% to themselves, of course. And yeah, it was an interesting time in the crypto ecosystem. Now, I'm not here today to talk about that because I think it's already been talked about to death, but I will make one little comment about something that I found funny is that I remember just a few months ago, the narrative was that people were buying meme coins as a revolt against the VC insider games, and then everyone goes nuts for this coin that has 80% insider allocation. It just struck me as a little interesting because I knew that was always the case. I knew that people were coming up with this narrative just to justify chasing these things. And again, there's nothing wrong with chasing these things. People can do what they want with their money. People can do what they want on chain, and that's the whole point of a permissionless network. But I do find it ironic that people tried to like lie to themselves, even saying that they were buying these things as some kind of revolt against the VCs, when in reality they're just chasing things because they want to make money. Nothing wrong with that, but hey, at least be honest about it. But anyway, enough on that. There is a lot of Ethereum stuff to get through today. Obviously, over the weekend there was also a lot of Ethereum Foundation drama yet again. I'm not going to cover all the drama. I've tweeted about it a bunch. I've talked to you guys in the Discord channel about it, and honestly, it's tiring at this point. I want to get back to just talking about the tech. Like, the social side of Ethereum is obviously very important, but I feel like I talk too much about that these days. So I want to get back to talking about the tech. But I do want to just highlight this tweet from Vitalik because he finally spoke up about the leadership changes that are happening within the EF. And he basically gave a list of what they're trying to actually achieve with these leadership changes and what they are not trying to achieve and what the explicit non-goals are. So what they are trying to achieve is that they want to improve the level of technical expertise within the EF leadership. This has actually been one of the, core criticisms of the EF is that they, not the EF as a whole, but like as of the EF leadership, in that they don't have enough technical expertise at the leadership level. They don't know enough about the chain. They don't know enough about the roadmap. They don't know enough about the apps as well, especially. So I think they're trying to do more of that. The second point here is improve two-way communications and ties between EF leadership and the ecosystem actors, old and new, that it is our role to support users, individuals, and institutional app devs, wallets, and L2. So this is again further putting point on the fact that the leadership team should be more in touch with the regular users, should be more in touch with the different companies building within the ecosystem, the L2s, so on and so forth. Because the EF is a big organization, there are a lot of people already working on this, but leadership obviously, the leadership team is a few different people, and they obviously should be aware of a lot of this as well. So I'm glad to see that point there. They want to bring in fresh talent, improve execution ability and speed. So that's that leadership refresh that I've been talking about at the EF. It's not just the executive director, guys. Like, the EF leadership team is a bunch of different people. I don't know the exact number right now, but I think it's like 6, 7, or 8 people right now, including Vitalik and Aya, who is the current ED, Josh Stark, and a few others out there. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but that's what it looks like right now. So bringing in fresh voices, fresh kind of ideas to the leadership team is an explicit goal, and that's exactly what they're doing. You saw the other day that Xiaowei Wang, or maybe you didn't see, on Twitter announced that she's now part of the leadership team. She's been a core part of Ethereum for a little while now, worked a lot on things like the merge. Actually, I believe she was the one who came up with the panda meme for the merge. So yeah, you would have seen her around. I've talked about her a bunch on the refuel before. The EF also wants to become more actively supportive of app builders and make sure important values and inalienable rights such as privacy, open source, and censorship resistance are a reality for users, including at the app layer. Again, reinforcing that point that they are aware that the leadership team is not as connected to the app layer as they can be, and they want to improve on that. And they want to continue to increase the EF's use of decentralized and privacy tech and the Ethereum chain, including for payments and treasury management. So great to see that. They want to be on chain more. This is something that I've personally been advocating for. You may have seen my tweets today to Tim Byko and Josh Stark. Just use the chain more publicly. You don't have to do everything on there. You don't have to dox yourself, but just use it more publicly. Use the Ethereum Foundation address to do things publicly. You know, maybe just stake some ETH. Don't stake all of the ETH, or of the EF's ETH, but stake some of it. And don't stake it with just one provider, obviously. I wouldn't even say to stake it with Lido, right? Obviously, you want to stake it with the smaller ones. Stake it with Rockerpool, maybe EtherFi, you know, Puffer, Swell, some of these other ones out there. Just like do some of that with some percentage of their ETH stack, and then maybe put some ETH into Aave, borrow some stables against it, right? You don't have to do totally degen stuff. They don't have to be aping meme coins or anything like that, but more of that. And Vitalik actually changed his profile picture to a milady recently. I think that was over the weekend, which was kind of cool to see as well, because the milady stuff and NFTs generally, that's obviously like full on-chain kind of, not, I mean, I wouldn't call it like degen culture, but it's definitely on-chain app level culture. So I'm glad to see Vitalik getting more involved there as much as he can be. Honestly, I don't want Vitalik to be sitting in the trenches all day, you know, doing meme coin, shitcoin kind of slinging, just to, I guess, like give the appearance that he's more in touch with the degen community, because that's a waste of his time, honestly. Like, his time is much better spent doing what he's good at, and that's the research side of things and doing leadership things within the EF and traveling the world, being an Ethereum evangelist. He's much better at that. Like, I honestly think that people asking for, I guess, like people that already have a lot of work that they're doing to do more, I guess, stuff on chain in like a degen way and spend time there and basically gamble, I guess you could call it. I don't think that's a good use of their time. But in saying that, they should definitely do some of it just to get a feel of how things are, and that can further inform their development efforts and research efforts as well, because right now there are UX pain points, and how acutely aware are the EF leadership team and EF members of those pain points. I believe a lot of people within the EF are acutely aware of that, but maybe the leadership team isn't, to an extent, because they're just not using enough on-chain stuff because they're busy doing other stuff. So it's worth them carving out time to get more in touch with those sorts of things. So I'm very, I'm very in favor of that. Then Vitalik listed out some explicit non-goals, which kind of got the community riled up, especially this first one, where he said that the EF doesn't want to execute some kind of ideological vibes pivot from the quote-unquote feminized WEF soy boy mentality to the Bronze Age mindset. This is Vitalik's kind of way, I think, of like tongue-in-cheek trolling people, because there is this, I guess, common belief, which I believe is wrong, that the EF is just full of these kind of woke soy boy feminist type people who don't care about anything and only care about like extreme kind of like leftist values and want to go on board Africa instead of actually appealing to the users that are on chain today, so on and so forth. You guys have seen all of these comments. I don't think that's a fair characterization of the EF at all. As I said, the EF has a lot of different people within it, a lot of different beliefs, a lot of different political beliefs, a lot of different kind of, you know, religious beliefs, different cultures. It is a mixed bag from all over the world. Like, there are literally EF people from many, many different countries, guys. It's not just like the EF only employs people from one country in Europe or from the United States. There is a huge mixed bag there of people, and it's actually awesome that there is that, because it means we've got better diversity within the talent pool there. And diversity has become this, I guess, word that seems to have a lot of toxicity attached to it. I'm not talking about diversity for the sake of diversity, but at the end of the day, you do want to have a diversity in the talent. You do want to have people from different backgrounds, different cultures. You do want to have people with different ideas there. That's how you push things forward. You don't want to just have everyone thinking the same thing. You don't want groupthink. You don't want yes men. Like, that does not lead to good outcomes. And I'm glad that the EF, at least from what I can tell and from what I know about the EF, isn't like that at all. But we also shouldn't kind of, I guess, expect the EF to be this, I guess, quote unquote Bronze Age mindset, which is this, I guess, like deep masculinity kind of image that people like seeing portrayed online. Yeah, there is room for that, just like there is room for the other stuff. But the thing is with the EF is that it already is a mixed bag of talents here. They just suck at marketing themselves, obviously. Like, I've gone through this before. So that point there obviously got people riled up. But I do think what Vitalik was trying to do was basically at the same time as saying that he doesn't think the EF falls into this bucket, just kind of, I guess, half trolling and tongue-in-cheek the people who think this. Because it is silly, I believe. But it is also a consequence of the fact that the EF does not market itself well enough. And he also said that an explicit non-goal is to start aggressively lobbying regulators and powerful political figures, especially in the US, but really anywhere, at especially large, powerful countries, and risking compromising Ethereum's position as a globally neutral platform. I completely agree with this. It is not the EF's job, in my opinion, to go and rub elbows with different world leaders and pick favorites between countries. Like, Ethereum is a global network. Ethereum is a decentralized network. It is a credibly neutral network. The EF itself is not credibly neutral, but it doesn't need to be doing this. It can be funding organizations that do this. It can be supporting organizations that do this. But the EF itself, this should not be part of their mandate at all. I strongly believe this. I think that I don't think they'd be good at it, to be honest, because they have strengths and they have weaknesses, and I believe this would be one of their weaknesses. And also, it doesn't pay to tie yourself or hitch your wagon to any kind of political party or any kind of, I guess, politician or any kind of organization or anything like that, because that is not long-term conductive to being a global network, a global credibly neutral network. And there are other organizations out there that are fully equipped to do this much better than the EF. So as long as the EF can support those organizations in the right ways, and as long as the EF doesn't shun them or anything like that, I think that's the right way to go about that. Vitalik also doesn't want the EF to become an area for an arena for vested interests. Obviously, like, that is self-explanatory. And the last point is that he doesn't want the EF to become a highly centralized organization or even more of a main character within Ethereum. Again, self-explanatory. We don't want the EF to be a central point of failure or a central point for Ethereum. They do a lot of good work, but they are one player among many in the Ethereum ecosystem today. They can use their skills to support many other players within the Ethereum ecosystem, but that should not be this like main thing that we all point to and all blame for anything and everything always. No, they are one organization among many, so let's, I guess, come to an understanding on that there. But anyway, that's not enough on the EF stuff. You can go read Vitalik's tweet and the replies to it if you want to. I'll link that in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, moving on. So Stani from Aave put together a really great tweet here about what, I guess, the biggest strengths or the greatest strengths of Ethereum are today. Because obviously there's a lot of doubt from people over a bunch of different things about what Ethereum is actually offering, what's the value of Ethereum, can it compete with other networks, is it actually offering what users want, so on and so forth. So I think when Stani's talking about Ethereum here, he's talking about L1 and L2s as a collective, but really there are nuances here as well, because Ethereum L1 is obviously the most secure part of the Ethereum ecosystem. The L2s, a lot of them right now have multi-sigs and stuff like that, but they're going to be moving towards becoming as secure as they can be and closely tied with Ethereum. But I just wanted to hit on each of Stani's points here very quickly. So the first point he says is that Ethereum has the highest security. It does. Ethereum Layer 1 has the highest security of any chain out there. From an economic security perspective, from a node operator distribution perspective, from the perspective of the fact that the Ethereum network itself, the Ethereum protocol itself, it has never been, I believe, hacked. There has been bugs before, but it's been rectified before any kind of damage has been done and things like that. So it has a lot of Lindy on the security side of things there. DeFi TVL. Ethereum has a massive amount of DeFi TVL. Really, Ethereum L1 is the only chain, I believe, out there today, as Stani mentions here, where you can actually borrow a lot, like hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in stable coins in order to go, I guess, like leverage long on ETH if you want, or do something else with those stable coins. Like just an example of how much DeFi TVL exists on Ethereum L1 today. And then he goes on and mentions the developer ecosystem and tooling. The EVM is second to none when it comes to this. The EVM has the most developer tooling, the biggest ecosystem, the most amount of developers on there. And in terms of developer experience, it is still by far the best. From every developer that I've spoken to that has tried different ecosystems, even though the EVM is not perfect, even though Solidity is not perfect, the fact that there's so much tooling, so much ecosystem support, so much accumulated knowledge over so many years around it, the EVM is just the easiest environment to develop in for any developer, whether they're a beginner or an advanced developer. They love the EVM developer experience in comparison to other ones. Like the EVM experience is not perfect. There's still obviously a lot of things that can be improved upon, but that's a big point there. Stani's fourth point is that EVM innovation. There's a lot of innovation happening at the EVM layer, especially with the L2s, especially with the L2s like Mega ETH, for example, that are really pushing the EVM to its limits. And it's not just within the Ethereum ecosystem too. I mean, you have Monad, which is a new L1, which is doing stuff with the EVM. The Ethereum ecosystem can port that over because it's with the EVM, right? So there's a lot of EVM innovation happening. The L2 strategy plus beefing up of Ethereum L1. I've spoken about this at length. I don't have to rehash this here. The president is building on Ethereum. I mean, World Liberty Finance is a DeFi protocol that's a fork of Aave, or an instance of Aave, as Stani calls it here, that is deployed on Ethereum mainnet. And Trump is also, I mean, probably not Trump directly, but his team are also buying a lot of ETH. I think they're up to like 40,000 ETH or something in their on-chain addresses right now. And this platform, I believe, hasn't launched yet. or is going to launch soon, and there's a token attached to it as well. So yeah, that's a pretty big signal, I think, as well. That, you know, even though Trump launched his meme coin on Solana, he's building his DeFi protocol, or his team is building this on Ethereum, which is a pretty big signal there. And furthering that is the institutions are deploying on Ethereum. We already know these big institutions like BlackRock, like Visa, like PayPal, they're building within the Ethereum ecosystem, especially on Ethereum mainnet, which is crazy because people are like, well, no one's going to use Ethereum mainnet because the fees are too high. It's like, no. The fees are too high maybe for regular users, and I totally sympathize with that, and I really like that we have the L2s for the regular users. But in terms of the bigger users, in terms of the whales, they would much rather guarantee that they're able to get their transaction included, even if they have to pay more, than not be able to guarantee that. Because the trade-off here, and you've seen a lot of this with Solana recently, is that landing your transaction, even for big players who can pay a higher fee, is not always guaranteed. So if you're trying to do things like unwind your position, your leverage position, or unwind a liquidity provider position, an LP position, you may not be able to do that, right? And that could lead to massive losses for you depending on the size of your position. Whereas with Ethereum L1, as long as you're paying the right fee, you're pretty much guaranteed to get your transaction included. For whales, this really, really matters because they don't care about paying even thousands of dollars worth of fees if they have millions of dollars worth of positions open. They just want to be able to get in and out of those positions. They just want to be able to guarantee that their transaction is going to be included. So this is a trade-off here. Obviously, it means that people have to pay lots in fees, but at least you get your transaction included. And I may be biased here, but I actually like that model. I prefer that model. And I mean, I've been advocating for that for a while now. Not to say that we shouldn't keep scaling the L1 up, but the Ethereum L1 is never going to be as scalable as the L2s, obviously. And it's never going to be as scalable as a chain that's, prioritizing high scalability or high execution scaling like Solana or Resui or Aptos. But then you got to discuss the trade-offs, right? They're trading off home verifiability. They're trading off decentralization. They're trading off security to achieve all that there. And Stani finally ends this by finally saying that the talent pool is the biggest in Ethereum across everything, not just developers, but researchers. The talent pool within Ethereum is absolutely massive because it's not just within the Ethereum ecosystem, it's also within the EVM ecosystem. Anyone working on the EVM across anywhere, whether that be Monad, whether that be BSC or Tron, like anywhere the EVM touches is Ethereum, right? The EVM is Ethereum. So the talent pool stretches out that far as well. Then you have all the L2s, of course. Like it's just a crazy amount of talent all built up around the Ethereum ecosystem. So I'm very glad that Stani put this out today because it's a good reminder of the Ethereum value prop here. And that's not to say that there's not plenty of work left to be done. Of course there is, but still a good reminder from Stani here. All right. Moving on, so speaking of improvements to Ethereum L1 and the L2s here, so Storm here from Paradigm put out his own, I guess, like timeline table around some of the upgrades coming to Ethereum L1 and L2s in terms of gas limit increases and blobs per block. His timelines here, I believe, are way too conservative because if you look at the timeline, he stretches this out to 2027. I actually quote tweeted this and I said that we can be much more ambitious with these timelines. We can actually bring everything that he says in 2027 through into 2026, potentially even early 2026. And these things include increasing the L1 gas limit, but also increasing blobs per block here. And we can also increase how much we increase the gas limit and increase the blobs per block from what's on Storm's table, because Storm's table is actually very conservative. Like it's actually way too conservative given the fact that I believe that these numbers are already outdated in terms of what we're already targeting here, because you can see here that the gas per block as Storm says here, by the end of 2025 would be 30 million, which doesn't make any sense to me considering that we're pretty much already advocating for a 36 million gas limit increase here. And then from there on, I think post Pectra, we're advocating for 40 million and then potentially 60 million by end of year. So double his numbers here. And then with blobs per block, we're getting with Pectra 6, but the thing is that with PeerDAS, we may be able to increase that a lot more if we deliver PeerDAS in Q4 of this year, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So I just put out this tweet where I said that we can be much more ambitious with this, which we are. The Ethereum developers and researchers are being much more ambitious about this. And so there's no need to be conservative here on timelines. And there was another tweet from someone that basically said that Ethereum developers and researchers should just stop giving timelines for things because it seems to be turned into FUD all the time. I think that's maybe the wrong approach because the community will always put timelines on things, or at least ask for timelines. And I don't I'm not in favor of making the Ethereum ecosystem more opaque. I'd rather have timelines out there and then they can actually be used as a way to push things to happen faster rather than not having timelines at all. I don't think that's the right approach. And I think that this narrative that other ecosystems move faster needs to die because they don't move faster. Like, it's actually incredible to me how many people said that the other ecosystems move faster when you actually can look at the other L1 ecosystems and say, well, for example, with Solana, Firedancer has been in development for, I think, over 3 years now, and it's still not live on mainnet in a production capacity. And that's been like a main talking point for a very long time. 3 years, guys. Like, that's a very long time here. So that's just one example. And then you have these other L1 networks that haven't even launched yet. And like Monad and Berachain, they've been in development for a very long time now. And the reason why I bring these up is because these development efforts are incredibly centralized. Like, they're not even live as a network yet, so they're not decentralized. And they're still moving slower, in my opinion, than Ethereum is, which is insane considering that Ethereum is a decentralized ecosystem. It actually naturally takes us longer to do anything. So this narrative that Ethereum moves too slow, in my opinion, is not accurate. But that's a narrative that obviously exists out there, and I'm not gonna go on about that there. Anyway, moving on to some more, I guess, context around what the Ethereum developers and researchers are focusing on. So Barnaby, who works in research at the Ethereum Foundation, basically was replying to a question that someone asked where he said, what are you and the EF currently focusing on most to deliver that most awesome world computer? So he basically has a list here of many things that himself and others are working on. The first thing is obviously scaling to serve global volumes with DAS and blobs and execution layer research and development with gas, ZK, VMs, and native rollups, broadening access to serve the network's core functions with censorship resistance, with Fossil, as I've talked about before, and other ideas around Orbit and Rainbow staking, improving on the feature set of the L1 consensus mechanism with positive side effects for L2s. So we want good bridging UX that can come with fast finality and single slot finality, looking into lower slot times, and ensuring economic sustainability over time, issuance research, and MEV firewall. So there is research and development happening across the entire stack here, as Barnaby notes. Now, there's another tweet here that I put out about scaling, about, I guess, like where the Ethereum ecosystem is headed generally over the next few years, where I say, we will scale the L1 via gas limit increases and other ways. We will aggressively scale the blobs for the L2s. We will implement native/based rollups. We will onboard the masses to Ethereum and make it all feel like a unified chain. And I'm bullish on Ethereum, obviously, and bullish on ETH. These are the things that will happen. I have no doubt in my mind that these things will happen. And I think that the fact that Ethereum is facing both more competitive pressure than it ever has before, and the fact that it's facing pressure within the community to move faster, means these things will happen a lot faster than what we've been expecting. I do believe that most of these things will happen in the next, even 12 to 18 months. These things will happen in a really big way here. But yeah, we do need to, I guess, like accelerate here. We do need to be more aggressive. And on that point of competition, I think it's funny because for a long time, and this is actually a broader discussion, but I won't spend too long on this, but for a very long time, Ethereum didn't actually have any good competition. It didn't have other chains actually trying to compete with the Ethereum ecosystem, and I'm including the L1 and the L2s here, but in terms of like execution scaling, it obviously mostly applies to the L2s. But it didn't have good competition for a very long time. I think that's what led to the, I guess, complacency, or there's somewhat, not a lot of, I don't think there's been a lot of complacency, to be honest. I know the narrative is that there's a lot of complacency, but I do think it's what led to some in the community to get complacent here because of the fact that all the competitors previously had just like failed and had not really achieved much. But then over the last, couple of years, I guess you could say the last 2 years, the competition has really heated up. And it's not just Solana, it's other networks as well. This Hyperliquid went live recently. There's other ones that I spoke about. Sui, Aptos, etc., etc. And the Ethereum ecosystem obviously needs to move faster to match that. And I think competition is an incredibly good thing. I'm very glad that Ethereum has competition. Like, if it didn't, I think we would still be stuck moving too slow. I think we would still be stuck basically being complacent, maybe getting more complacent over time, and more of the community getting complacent over time. So I'm very, very glad that we have this really good competition now because of that fact there. But in saying that, I do, as I said before, think that the Ethereum ecosystem has not been that complacent. I think that we could have been moving maybe a little bit faster, but at the same time, when you're building out in the open, when you're building in a decentralized way, where you're trying to coordinate so many different stakeholders across the ecosystem, there's only so far, there's only so much, I guess, like additional speed you can add to this stuff, and there's only so much stuff you can ship at any given time here. So there is a balance to be had between increasing shipping time, maintaining the security of the network, and making sure nothing breaks. And I think the Ethereum ecosystem has so far maintained a good balance there, but accelerating from here, especially doing things that don't require hard forks, is a core, I guess, goal of the Ethereum ecosystem right now, and I'm glad to see that continue there. All right, so Joseph Lubin, who is the co-founder, one of the co-founders of Ethereum and the founder of Consensus, put out a really great tweet about, I guess, like Ethereum and ETH and why people should be bullish on it. But one part of his tweet here, I quoted, where he said, "So even if nation states are at war, they'll still be able to enter into smart contract-based deals with one another, including treaties, and back their word with large stake." And I said, this is one of Ethereum's core properties, to be a credibly neutral world computer for everyone. And I think I explained this analogy the other day on Friday with the US and North Korea analogy that I gave. But yeah, this extends to basically everything. If there is ongoing conflicts, or if there are nations that don't trust each other, but they want to make financial agreements with each other enforced by things like large stake, then they can do that in a credibly neutral way on the Ethereum blockchain, because of the fact that the Ethereum L1, at least, does not favor any one nation state, does not favor any one entity, doesn't favor any one individual. It is a credibly neutral, decentralized, censorship-resistant, permissionless network for anyone to use. That is the reason why we keep the L1 limited. At least the thing is, we would love the L1 to be able to do more stuff, but there is that trade-off of, we want people to be able to verify the network at home, we want people to be able to run full nodes at home, we want people to be able to stake and solo stake and home stake without requiring massive amounts of hardware, without requiring massive amounts of bandwidth, and that comes with the trade-off of L1 just not being very scalable. Right now, at least, there is a lot of research going into essentially maintaining that decentralization while scaling the L1 up a lot. Things with like stateless clients, for example, things like ZK EVM precompiles so that we can have native rollups, so on and so forth, right? So obviously gas limit increases, and I think asynchronous execution. There's a lot of research going on here, but the main point is that one of Ethereum's core properties is what Joe Lubin is talking about here. So I figured it was worth highlighting just to remind you guys about that there. So another thing that Joe Lubin tweeted about, or at least replied to someone with, is that this Twitter account Warhammer basically said to Joe Lubin that he should take Consensus public, issue convertible bonds, buy and stake ETH, and 2025 is the time to do this. And Joseph Lubin replied with a smiley face, and he didn't elaborate further than that. So I think that obviously reading too much into this may lead people to disappointment, but he may be teasing at the fact that Consensus wants to do this. But I wanted to talk a little bit broader here about the fact that the reason why you haven't seen, I think, Consensus and other Ethereum companies be as, I don't know, vocal or progressive with things or aggressive with things is because of the hostile US admin. Because if you remember, the SEC went after Consensus. They're still going after Uniswap. They're still going after Coinbase. They were going to go after a lot of the Ethereum teams about ETH before they approved the ETF. So there was a lot of hesitation from these companies to put themselves in the firing line just in case the SEC, just in case the Dems were to win again and the SEC, and Gary Gensler was to stay in and keep doing this, right? And the Dems keep doing their kind of hostility towards crypto. But now that the admin has changed, now that Gary Gensler is out of the way, now that we have essentially like, look, we have a president launching his own meme coin. That, to me, signals open season to everyone, which I have my own issues with. I don't think that it's necessarily a good thing from the perspective of it's open season for scammers now, but it is obviously a much more favorable environment than what we had under the Democratic leadership in the US. So I think you're going to see a lot more aggressive stuff happening from Ethereum-aligned companies such as Consensus and these other companies, especially if the lawsuits get withdrawn. Like, imagine the SEC lawsuits against Coinbase and Uniswap and others get withdrawn. I don't know if it's going to happen right away, but imagine if they do. That's insane, guys. Like, that is crazy, because it basically signals that that the SEC has completely changed their enforcement strategy and their enforcement I guess, policy on crypto, and he's very open to crypto, and he's not going to go after people just willy-nilly here. And that opens the floodgates to things like what Joe Lubin could possibly do with consensus. What essentially he would be doing here is the MicroStrategy or the Saylor strategy with MicroStrategy, issuing the convertible bonds, buying more ETH with it instead of buying BTC like Saylor does, staking that ETH, and essentially becoming like the Michael Saylor of Ethereum, just buying a lot of ETH. That would be really cool to see. Obviously, when done in a sustainable way. I don't want it to be done in like a totally degen way where Joe Lubin and Consensus lever up so hard on ETH and then blow themselves up. But I don't think that they would do that. They've been around long enough to know what to do and what not to do here. All right, so speaking of efforts that are being put together to, I guess, lobby institutions and do more lobbying with politicians for ETH as an asset and for Ethereum as a network, Eric here put out a tweet where he said that the EF should not be directly involved in lobbying. And this is something that I basically said before. And then he said there is a stealth community-led effort that will be announced soon, funded by the EF, that will be focused on US lobbying and institutions. So this effort I'm aware of. It's, as Eric said, in stealth right now. I don't want to, announce it because they'll announce themselves soon enough. I think the announcement's coming very soon, actually. So there is an effort here. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where I said that the EF should not be involved in this directly, but they should be able to support it. They should be able to fund it. They should be able to aid in giving resources to these efforts. And this effort that has actually been started and that I've been a part of, I'm quite bullish on, honestly. And I know I'm teasing here. I don't want to give anything away until the official announcement's been made. And of course, I'll cover it on the refuel. But I'm really bullish about this because the people behind it understand these things, understand the institutions that they're going to be talking to, understand, I guess, like the grease work you have to do when it comes to Wall Street, when it comes to DC with politicians. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm even more excited that it's a new kind of effort that's happening outside of the existing power structures, because it means they have a lot more autonomy to do things, and they can basically have a fresh set of people doing this sorts of stuff with EF support. Because I think that the EF does need to support these efforts because they add legitimacy to it, and they all can also add funding to it, which is a big thing for startups, for new efforts. But I'm glad that it's not, as I said, the EF doing this; it's a new institution doing it. But more on that soon. So there was a neat video here that I just wanted to shout out about EIP 7702, which is the account abstraction EIP. This comes from Let's Get On Chain. You should go check this out. It's a 27-minute video, so it is quite long here. As long as the regular, I guess like the usual refuel is, except today's refuel I just noticed has gone a bit over time. But yeah, this is basically explaining how EIP 7702 works, and he goes through every line of code. So you don't have to watch the whole video, obviously, if you're not a developer. Going through every line of code is not going to be, I guess, much use for you. But I think just watching the first part of this video is a good way to essentially get an overview of what 7702 is and basically how it's going to change Ethereum UX forever. All right, speaking of, I guess, like Vitalik tweets, there's another one here where he basically described the different the constructions that you can make when it comes to rollups or layer 2s within the ecosystem. Now, he was talking about things like based native rollups, ZK rollups, optimistic rollups, but he was putting, I guess, a plain language to this. At least, I mean, it's not an explain like I'm 5, but if you've listened to the refuel long enough, you'll probably get a lot of this. I just wanted to highlight this tweet because I'll link it in the YouTube description for you guys to check this out. But I think it's a really great way of explaining the differences between based native, ZK, rollups, different stages of rollups. Are they using ETH as the fee token? Is ETH the primary asset of the economy? So on and so forth. And this is a good taxonomy here, so you should definitely go check that out. But this was basically in reply to a tweet that Uma Roy put out about native rollups. Now, I've talked about native rollups before. These used to be known as enshrined rollups, and I think a long time ago I actually spoke about enshrined rollups and how I believe that they wouldn't be, I guess, like ready for quite a while, and this was years ago. I believe that they could be ready by the end of this year, if not into early next year. I believe that they're ready, quote unquote, today, but in terms of like getting it into the network, yeah, I mean, maybe not the end of this year, maybe early next year. But Uma does a really great job here of explaining what native rollups are, some background about it, what the benefits are, and how basically it can fix a lot of the current issues with interoperability of the different rollup ecosystems out there today. So you should definitely go check out this tweet from Uma. I will say that the same thing I've always said about native/enshrined rollups. The biggest drawback is that if it's a ZK EVM precompile, it means that you're kind of limited to the EVM from my understanding. So the normal layer 2s that we are used to today would obviously still have a massive reason to exist because of the fact that they can experiment with different constructions, different virtual machines, but also with using other DA layers in order to essentially give even more scale, because there are certain things that require like a lot of scale if you want to do everything on chain, such as like an on-chain game or an on-chain central limit order book exchange. So to do that sort of stuff does require more scale than Ethereum blobs are going to offer for the foreseeable future. So alt DA will be used, something like Eigen DA, but still native rollups are really, really cool, and you should go give this tweet a read there. But anyway, on that note, I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all on Wednesday. Thanks, everyone.